How do adult children of helicopter parents deal with them later in life? My dad was never a helicopter parent. He was actually the complete opposite. My mum was a super helicopter parent. When I was a sophomore in high school, I got grounded from everything. I couldn't go anywhere or do anything. I had to go to school and come home. I couldn't watch TV unless it was about God. I didn't have a phone or a computer and couldn't listen to music. For months. It got worse and worse as time went on. She'd give me a curfew randomly one day, and it would be different the next day. I'd get in trouble for not following a curfew I had no idea existed. She gaslit me so much that I often felt like I deserved what was happening to me. After going to therapy, I'm better able to identify between her more mean-spirited and bipolar tendencies. I'm working on minimizing contact with her, so whenever she's being a pain in my butt, I just tell her to F off. Mine say things and I just kind of go, like I'm agreeing that I'll do those things, but I never verbally say that I'll do those things. Same. It's easier to lie and agree than to tell the truth and spend the next half hour listening to a monologue. I still live with my parents. I avoid their invasive questions, but I'm pretty honest about everything I do choose to share with them. My siblings and I are whole adults, so they try to be less insane these days. Funny story though, the other day my sister and I were watching Pulp Fiction, and my dad waltzed into our room, stared at the TV for a second and goes, "That movie is for grown-ups." My sister said, "I'm 25. They still helicopter me, actually more than ever now that I'm 24, and I'm not sure what suddenly turned the dial up. However, I'm finally planning on moving out for good this year with my boyfriend. Every time I bring it up, they don't believe me, or they think I'm kidding and say it isn't happening. Oh well, I did tell them. I guess they'll get a reality check when the time comes, and it won't be on me. I just say no when I'm told to do something or follow a rule. I don't give a reason even when I'm asked why. It's so satisfying. I don't. That's how I deal with my parents later in life. I don't do it. I'm not no contact with them, but I'm absolutely firm on my boundaries and standing up for myself, and I don't let their tantrums sway me. On the other hand, the pressure does eat at me, but I'll never let them know that. This video is an odd and mostly positive sequel from one of our previous videos, What's the worst case of helicopter parents that you've ever seen? Feel free to check it out if you'd like to know more about what these adults are rebelling against. My parents weren't, but a friend moved to a different state and got engaged, and his mum still managed to be a helicopter parent, visiting at least 3 times a month and contacting either her or her significant other constantly. It ruined the engagement because the significant other finally had enough. Because even though my friend was annoyed with her mum as well, she couldn't cut her mum off completely. I don't know all the details, but it must have been super annoying if someone was like, "I love you, but F having in-laws like this." She's now single and has moved back home. It's unfortunate. Honestly, me and my husband are trying to figure this out. My mother-in-law is a total helicopter parent. If one of us, me or my husband or his brother, doesn't respond to her messages within an hour or two, she'll bombard the other two about where we are or if something happened to us. She freaked out on me when I didn't respond to her after 3 hours. We were doing a cross-country drive, and she accused me of trying to shut her out and said we're never going to be a real family because of the walls that I've built up around myself. I don't know what to do. My husband won't stand up to her as much as I want him to, but I can't do this for the rest of my life. We have to establish some boundaries. But it's not my mum, so I can't be the one to initiate it. Well, yeah, he's obviously so used to it that he doesn't actually understand how damaging this is. I know of a few marriages that dissolved because of one helicopter parent. It's only going to get worse if you ever have children. They'll become helicopter grandparents, and that's even more stifling. They'll tell you exactly how to raise your own children and get angry when you don't take their overflowing advice. If he won't put his foot down and he gets mad at you for putting your foot down, then it's not going to last, and if it does, it won't be happy. I have a friend whose mother-in-law would just show up unannounced and expect to be welcomed in, asked for a key when they started pretending they weren't home, then eventually kept suggesting that they should move to her neighborhood to be closer as a family. The wife wanted to move across the country just to avoid this woman, and her mama's boy husband was aghast at this idea. They ended up divorcing. By the way, after posting this story, my inbox blew up with angry helicopter parents telling me to go F myself. I must have struck a nerve. It's funny to me that "it's family" is used to justify all sorts of awful behavior that you'd never rationalize if it wasn't coming from someone who created you. The person I was replying to was obviously upset with the situation they're in, and I've seen a number of similar situations play out in my life. Hence the advice. I'm low contact. A lot of us go low or no contact. My older brother and I moved out as soon as we turned 18. He moved to the opposite side of the country and I moved 3 states away. He still keeps low contact and is still on the East Coast. I came back home when I became homeless at 25 and noticed that while we were gone, my mother, the helicopter, had done a lot of soul-searching and realized that her controlling nature pushed her kids away. She's been in Codependence Anonymous for almost 8 years now, and I'm happy to say for the first time in my life, I enjoy spending time with my mum. It took a bit, but I was able to transition out of low contact. I had no idea they had recovery groups for codependent people. I'm glad to see your mother was able to progress and have improvements for herself. CODA is fantastic for domestic victims, as well as obsessive helicopter parents or anyone with codependency problems. I ignore them. To be honest, it's also because I'm in a different city and have a hectic job, but there was also a period of slowly getting them used to the fact that they would not know and control every detail of my adult life. I don't know if I'd say I'm an adult because I'm 19 and still in college, and does that really count? But yeah, I just ignore them. They say, do this, and I say, okay. And then I do whatever the frick I want. They've got to drive 13 hours to get to me. I can't see them paying for a plane flight. What are they going to do, call me? I can just not answer it. They said, share your location with us, and I said, no, and it was amazing. They said, give me your password so we can check your grades, and I was like, nope, I can't, it's location-based, whoops, sorry, it's not. They say don't go out, and I just tell them I'm not going to frat parties. Meanwhile, I'm going like 3 hours away for 2 nights for a weekend trip with a whole damn frat. I tell them I wake up at 9 every day and go to sleep at 11:30 and that I eat 3 times a day. I have 4 friends that they trust that I always say that I'm hanging out with. I have a separate Insta account that they can follow so they don't see what I'm doing. I pay for my own subscriptions so they can't see what I have. I have my own credit card so they can't police what I buy, and I don't tell them when it's time to register for classes, so they can't tell me what to sign up for. I made that mistake last semester. I don't tell them what finals I have when, so they can't police my studying every hour. I've got 4 cream sodas in my fridge right now. My mum would flip if she found out that I drank soda. Huh. So basically, ignore them and hide things, I guess. Probably not the best habits, but you know what? I'm enjoying being able to step outside for a moment without being asked, where are you going? Or being able to talk about someone I sit next to without being asked about their family or grades. Went for a walk on campus at 6 yesterday, on my own, and no one yelled at me for it. And look, they're not cut off. I still communicate with them, but I just hide a lot, so they think my college existence is the exact same as my high school existence. And I also don't answer every single call or text from them immediately. But I call home and say hi on weekends and keep them somewhat updated on what I'm doing. And no, I'm not fully financially independent yet. I'm working on it. I'm paying for half of college. I'm high-key too scared to try and discuss boundaries while they can still hold half of my tuition over my head. Although the last author's gripes about their parents are very much valid, I know that in my previously referenced video on them, I believe a number of said parental figures insisted on breaking into their children's universities and even job interviews, so you should consider yourself lucky in that respect at least. I had to be extremely mean and blunt with my mum. I'm a mid-30s man and had to straight up tell her that I have a family and my own life, and she needs to go and get a hobby or take classes or anything whatsoever that will give her a sense of value because I don't need a gosh darn interfering invasive mother any longer. When she started giving me the, that's so horrible that you talk to your mother that way, or the, oh no, my kids don't need me anymore, I literally flat out had to just say, I don't give a crap, mum, go work it out. I had to be super mean to her about it. Sometimes parents have to cut their children off, and sometimes children have to cut their parents off. It doesn't make me feel good, but I sleep fine. I feel ya. I moved back in with my parents in November. I'm 26, and when I moved back in, I explained to my mum that I usually go and hang out with my friends 2 to 3 times per week, and I enjoy being out of the house a lot. Still, when I come back home, I get several questions about where I was and who I was with, what I was doing, etc. It drives me insane, and I have to straight up tell her to stop questioning me. I feel bad about being so short with her, but I don't have much privacy there. My parents weren't that bad, but they were quite overprotective. After I turned 21, I still wasn't allowed out after dark and all that jazz. Had to let them know where I was going and who I was seeing in case I was murdered. What I did was move to another continent. I talk to them every couple of weeks over WhatsApp voice chat. They try and tell me what to do sometimes, and I'm just like, okay, and I don't do it. I'm white British and moved to the US when I was 24. Last I checked with them, my parents had agreed that my mum is no longer allowed out in the front garden without my dad, quote, because of all the blacks moving in. Just in case you wanted any confirmation on their sanity. The way that I got my mum to chill out on me was to tell her that I wanted to go to college out of state. That was the moment she realized she wasn't going to be protective of me forever, and it took her a long time to accept it. As of now, she's been a little easier on me, although she still sometimes treats me like a child. If I'm out of state, then I just limit contact with her and don't call home often. I think a lack of contact is the best everyone with helicopter parents can do initially, because it's just so refreshing to be by yourself with nobody breathing on your neck after so long. You can submit your own stories to be featured here on the channel. The story submission link is in the description below. And if you want to listen to some vibey music in the background, check out easymode, also linked below, and subscribe. My brother and I had no free time allowed growing up, just music and homework allowed. Now we're both over 30, my dad has passed away now, and he was never the problem to be honest. But my mum still does her best to control our lives, inserting herself into situations she doesn't belong in, and passively aggressively putting us in situations that she wants to happen. But cutting her off or telling her she's overstepping makes us the bad ones in her mind, so minimal contact and details are all that's left on the menu for her for now. My brother doesn't get it though and gives her the minute details of his life and then gets annoyed when she thinks she can have a say in how he lives his life. Limiting contact with my mother has worked for me as well. When I was in middle school, my friends asked if I wanted to join them, and I always had to stay home because of her migraine, etc. Because my parents are divorced, I moved in with my father and then later moved out of town. Somewhat cutting contact made her worry, and she stays on the phone for hours if I don't stop her when we talk, but it did get a lot better. My husband deals with this with his mother. We make decisions as a married couple, and then later everything changes after they talk to each other. Even situations dealing with our daughter. Like, I have no say even when he and I were on the same page before decisions were put into action. He's so desperate to please his mum that he turns his back on me. When I confront him, he blames me for causing drama or being petty. I don't know, his mum acts like she's his wife and he lets it happen. It grosses me out. I'm sorry to tell you, but this will get worse and you might only get your husband to listen to you if you persist on doing couples counseling. His behavior is putting your relationship in danger and he might need a good smack from someone else to see his wrongdoings. Don't let him step over you. Set firm boundaries with your mother-in-law and him now. Tell him to grow a spine. Do it for your child. Both of my parents have problems with setting boundaries with their parents, and it's unbearable. Stay strong and maybe visit the No Mill subreddit. My parents track my location at all times now. I'm 27. That way, they don't call the cops if I don't pick up within 30 minutes, which has happened multiple times. I once fell asleep on the couch and my parents couldn't get hold of me for an hour. They concluded that I hit my head in the shower and died. My parents are immigrants and only have me, so I'm not sure if that has to do with their anxiety. Stone-cold boundaries and a residence more than 1,000 miles away. This seems to be a brief summary of the majority of people's solutions to the problem. The other seems to be therapy, which to an extent requires some willingness from the parents to be open about the fact that they have a problem. And let's be honest, that might not be the case for everyone. You've got to rip that band-aid off, and it will suck. But it's better than letting this continue. I have some experience with this from rescuing both my wife and her siblings from their mother and immigrant community. It was a rescue that took years. It sucked. It still sucks sometimes. Cops, ethnic gang shenanigans, kidnapping, people with deadly weapons and attempted murder. All of that fricking happened. The only reason certain people aren't in jail is my wife forbade me from ensuring it. They're family. The advice below comes from that experience and it may not apply to all of you. I hope almost none of it does. You have to have a plan before every interaction. You'll need those plans until independence becomes a part of you. This can take years and you will probably feel like you're a horrible person for doing it. My wife still sometimes feels like the worst daughter in the world. You're not the worst. They're the worst. You deserve to be free. If you struggle with the guilt, see a therapist. They really help. If your therapist doesn't help, then get a new therapist. Every plan must have the following things in it. 1. You have a goal and stick with it. There's going to be a lot of things you want to change. And you can't change everything on day one. Keep it simple and don't bend your goal. Don't accommodate them with any amendments. All of that is just a slippery slope right the frick back into their controlling hands. 2. Be ready to walk away. This means you shouldn't argue. You're not making a request, you're telling them how it is now. After they reject it, and they will, don't argue. Just walk away or hang up. If arguing could change anything, things would already be different for you. You can't control them, and that's actually a good, healthy thing. You need to be clear that they can't control you either. Arguing tells them that they have a chance. 3. Have a prepared consequence like, if they cause trouble, I'm just going to hang up and block their number for a couple of weeks. And 4. Expect it to go horribly. It just will. Their reactions will almost certainly be a messed up control freak version of the stages of grief. They will rage and they will scream. Expect this. They'll try to guilt trick you into giving them back their control. Expect this. Follow your plan. You'll have to tell the cops to ignore them when they call about you. Expect this. Other people associated with your family might try to talk to you about the latest conflict. Expect their betrayal. Don't hate them. They're trapped in the same cultural bullcrap, just don't assume they're on your side. If you can, do not meet them in person. They have to earn it by respecting your boundaries. The first meetings will almost certainly be manipulative, sneaky, or a guilt trip plot. Expect this and remember rule number 2, walk away. Meetings may always be this way. You may want early meetings in a public place like a restaurant. If they come from a culture that does honor killing, you must consider the possibility that any attempt to meet or any sudden contact from another relative or immigrant friend of the family is actually a murder or kidnap or acid plan. And this isn't racist bullcrap, I've lived through this stuff. If you fall for it and actually go, protect yourself. Don't go alone, take a friend or two. My wife made the mistake of doing visits without me and horrible stuff happened every time. Don't repeat her mistakes. Make sure that people know where you are and that the people you're visiting know that other people know. If you're a female, this is even more important. Certain immigrant cultures see female children as family property. Your misbehavior is an embarrassment to the whole family and shames them in the community. Shame can turn to murder rage real frickin' quick, or it can simmer for months and a carefully crafted lie will lead you to a horrific end. Be paranoid, stay safe, and finally, no matter how many years have gone by, you can't visit the country they're from with them, ever. Over there, they can beat you all they want and have family and friends and culture crap to call upon to control you. This is real stuff that happens. Tricking uppity family into a visit home for a little correction is a very real thing to them. You can visit the old country, just not with them. And any visits with family over there need to be considered very carefully. The best thing to do is treat a visit like an actual vacation. Go to all of the popular vacation destinations and meet family for food somewhere once or twice, and then be on your way. Well, that was a very extreme guide on how to deal with a very specific sort of helicopter parent. Along with a few other complicated cultural factors, it seems like a very stressful and time-consuming process to break someone out of this situation. I hope you and your wife and her family have found a semblance of balance and happiness. Unfortunately, the helicopter behavior continued after I got married and had children. Eventually, the only way to gain control was to go no contact. Fundamentally, it boiled down to a complete lack of respect for boundaries. My happiness, marriage, and ability to be a good parent were all suffering because my mother was still trying to control my life. We tried setting up boundaries, but that only escalated things. I would have gladly gone to family counseling if she had agreed, but it was far easier for her to complain to her friends that her children don't speak to her. And yes, my brother cut her off too. I strongly recommend the following books: Stop Walking on Eggshells by Paul Mason and Boundaries by Henry Cloud. I also very strongly recommend counseling. 1. I moved to a different country. 2. I don't go back to visit. 3. When they come visit, they stay in a hotel. And 4. My husband, who was not raised in an overbearing environment, is always present when they visit. He serves as a reality check and is effective in shutting down misbehavior. And 5. I'm going to have to explain one day that they won't be allowed unsupervised visits with any children that I have. I ended up having to remove my parents from my life, and at first it was really hard. But seriously, they've controlled every aspect of it. When I was a kid, my internet time was limited and supervised. I was allowed like an hour a day on electronics. I wasn't allowed to play any violent video games. I really only played Mario Kart. I wasn't allowed to play Pokemon because it had evolution in it. I wasn't allowed to read Harry Potter because it was magic, and magic is bad. They decided which college I went to when I was 18. They decided which degree I got. When I was struggling to find work, they pushed me to go into a field I didn't want to go to, which I'm now stuck in. When I was sick as well, it was really rare that I went to the doctor. At one point, I was dying from a bad case of pneumonia, and they refused to hospitalize me, even though I was almost dead. Quite literally. My lungs were full of fluid and my oxygen level was running at 82%. Even on oxygen, that number didn't go up. Once I moved out of my house, I started to talk to them less until last year I finally just decided to cut them off. Talking to them gave me anxiety and they always tried to steer my life in a different direction, so I figured it was better to cut them out completely. At first it was hard, but it's gotten easier over time. My mother made my bank accounts, insurances, and even my mobile phone contract when I was underage, and she just kept them. I also think she stole money from me, but that's a different story. She said I wasn't able to manage this kind of stuff by myself. With the help of my significant other, I took everything back from her when I was 26. When I visited her, she tried to pressure me into stuff again, so I threatened her that I would pack up my stuff and leave immediately, and that she would never see me or talk to me ever again in her life. Those two things were kind of wake-up calls for her. Now she's so afraid that I could really go no contact that she keeps her stupid mouth shut. When you subscribe, make sure to hit the bell to turn on notifications. Put the playlist on in the background to finish listening to all the stories, or if you want some vibey music to put on in the background, check out easymode. If you like Am I the Genius, give Am I the Jerk a shot. Everything linked in the description.